Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Chad M here from BetHub.com. Today we're going to be breaking down the big NBA three-team trade, which sees Rudy Gay going to the Toronto Raptors. And involved in the deal in order to make this happen was the Detroit Pistons. Memphis, in return, will be receiving Tayshaun Prince from those Pistons and Austin Daye, along with Ed Davis from the Toronto Raptors. Going to the Detroit Pistons will be Jose Calderon. We can first start with the Toronto Raptors here. This, in my opinion, was an absolute swing for the fences kind of move here for Brian Colangelo, who has his contract set to expire at the end of this year. Under his control since Chris Bosh has left, this team has done absolutely nothing except spin its wheels. They haven't been able to be bad enough in order to get a top 3 or 4 pick that would be considered a superstar franchise player that you build around. They always finish, in that sort of 8th or 10th worst record in the league, never really contending for the playoffs. They compete hard every night, but they just do not seem to get that superstar on the roster that they need in order to get to the next level. And I believe by going out there and getting Rudy Gay, Colangelo thinks he's been able to fill that void a little bit. Yet I still don't think it's enough, because at the end of the day, is he really going to want to stick around long term, even though there's 4 more years left on his max contract? We've seen Vince Carter leave in the past, we've seen Tracy McGrady leave in the past, and most recently we've seen Chris Bosh. For whatever reason it is, and I can sit here and break it down for another hour as to why superstars don't want to stay in Toronto, I don't see Rudy Gay wanting to stay there long term. So they better hope here in the next 3 or 4 years something good comes out of this. Because trust me, even though Rudy Gay makes this team have more talent overall, I still don't believe he is a max money contract type of player. Yes, he's a nice player. He's a borderline all-star guy who could average you 25 and 5, but he's still just not complete enough for me to be someone that you're going to build an entire franchise around, because of the fact that he's just not consistent enough offensively, especially shooting the basketball. And when you look at just the direction of this Raptors organization, I still have so many question marks surrounding Colangelo with the structure of this team here. They have very similar sort of perimeter slashing scoring type of guys on their roster. In my opinion, DeMar DeRozan's a similar type of player to Rudy Gay. He might not be as good of a scorer from a shooting perspective. He might be a little bit more better athletically and can get to the rim than Rudy Gay, and maybe Gay's a little bit better defensively. But why on earth would you want to have guys that play the exact same position, that have the exact same skill set on the team having these big extended contracts? Pick one or the other. And then when you look at what they've done down low, they've decided to bring in guys like Bargnani from the past and Valanciunas this year. It's hard to give a real fair judgment on Valanciunas since he hasn't been around for a long enough period of time. But the bottom line here is I don't know many teams in NBA history that have had success with 2 big white guys down in the post being the cornerstones to the franchise. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then, you look at the fact that they have the Terrence Rosses out there and the Quincy Acies. There's just too many of these athletic perimeter players, but there's no one great on that roster, which is what is going to cause them to continue to spin their wheels. I understand getting rid of Jose Calderon. They did bring in Lowry in the offseason. I'm not convinced he's necessarily better than Calderon, but given that he is a free agent at year's end, they had to get rid of him because they know they're not going to sign him long term. For the Detroit Pistons, they'll just inherit that contract, ride it out, and get rid of him at the end of the year. Maybe he serves as a nice little role model to Brandon Knight, who they drafted a few years ago. But with the Raptors here, I just think that Colangelo knew time was running out. He's probably going to get canned at the end of this year because MLSC has sort of changed what they're trying to do in terms of the corporate side of things. We saw Berkey already get canned, and he has had 0 success as a GM in terms of making the playoffs. Colangelo falls under the same category from the last few years. So to me, like I said, it's him just swing for the fences here. It's not a smart move, in my opinion, to take on this deal long term. Ed Davis was starting to play a little bit better this year. I don't mind getting rid of him because they have Amir Johnson, they have Valanciunas, they have Bargnani down low, so they have enough size down there, so they didn't really necessarily need him. But then again, here you have this one time a big guy developing a little bit, yet they don't keep him around. There's nothing consistent with the way this team is trying to build itself. They either have to commit to just being atrocious and getting a top 2 or 3 pick, or they're going to have to try to get even better with Rudy Gay and bring in more free agents, which is not easy in Toronto and Canada to do. Otherwise, this team is at best a borderline playoff team, which would get absolutely pumped by Miami in the first round or any of the top dogs in the Eastern Conference in years moving forward, because they clearly aren't making the playoffs this year. Personally, I would like to see them trade DeRozan now so they can try to, bring in some other assets to the organization, or Bargnani. They need even bigger of a shakeup. And then last but not least here, we'll break down the Memphis part of the equation here. Now, I can understand them wanting to get rid of this contract and get themselves under the luxury tax from a financial standpoint. But what I don't agree here is Michael Heisley, the owner's strategy in terms of not wanting to commit long-term to this team. For once, the Grizzlies have shown tremendous positive progress with their organization in terms of being a consistent winning team, a team that you can expect to win a playoff series, and even be a dark horse to win the Western Conference. And this offseason, they decided to get rid of O.J. Mayo, saying, you know what, fine, we'll go with Rudy Gay. He's sort of our outside perimeter slashing kind of scorer, because we know we have the depth down low in the post with Randolph and Gasol. Well, now they have neither of that, and the Grizzlies oftentimes struggle to score, especially from the outside. Mike Conley is a decent point guard, above average, but he's not a guy that you can really expect to have the ball in his hands and creating a lot of offense on his own. So now by taking Mayo off the team and Rudy Gay, they're completely left without any offense of that position, and it's really going to hurt them, and I think going to be the demise of them of really having a chance to contend here in the Western Conference come the playoffs times. Yes, Tayshaun Prince, a good defensive player, can score a little bit, but not nearly as good as Rudy Gay offensively. Ed Davis has been much better this year with Toronto, but how much playing time is he going to get in the starting rotation behind the two monsters, Gasol and Zach Randolph? Who knows? Maybe this is setting up something here in the long run to trade one of those two big guys to add some more offensive from the perimeter, which is what this team dearly lacks now. So I understand them wanting to get rid of the salary, but I don't understand the fact that they're not willing to spend the money in order to make this team as good as they possibly can be. Because at the end of the day here, even though maybe Rudy Gay was slightly overpaid with max money because he's not a true guy that you really want to build a team around offensively from the perimeter, maybe you look at him as more of a secondary piece, they are still a worse overall basketball team. So I don't like the trade from their perspective. Nobody really is a winner in my opinion here. I guess Toronto maybe has the most upside out of this deal here, but based on the way their current roster is comprised and the fact that there's so much confusion from the general manager in terms of really what they're trying to do, it just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. That's my breakdown of the big trade here. Obviously, here in Canada, it's big news due to the fact that this is the only NBA team in the country. They're on TSN, and it's what we see here most often compared to other NBA teams, so it gets our interest quite a bit. And now we can start to analyze these rosters and how it's going to affect things from a wagering perspective. You guys can check out the link below, bethub.com. NBA betting going on every single day, along with the NHL, which is in full gear now with the shortened season, with many games every single day. Get out there, challenge your friends, come bet me in my big trap. It's got the cool layout on there. You can trash talk your friends. It's got a bit of a Facebook look to it, so it's very user-friendly. BetHub.com. Keep checking it out. Place your wagers on there, and keep going back to the sports blog with plenty outstanding daily content along with my video rants on all the big-time news that's occurring in the sports world.